political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. And over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the United States and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before that, let's take a look at the latest headlines. North Korea test fires 2 ballistic missiles capable of carrying super large warheads. South Korea says one of the missiles actually misfired and fell near Pyongyang. Israeli strikes kill at least 8 Palestinians in southern Gaza. This as thousands flee Rafah after the Israeli army orders Palestinians to leave the city ahead of a major ground offensive. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro agrees to resume direct negotiations with the United States just days before the presidential election. This as Caracas reels under severe sanctions imposed by Washington. A turf battle between 2 rival gangs leaves at least 19 dead in southern Mexico. Police say the clash involved Mexico's most powerful Sinaloa cartel and a gang from neighboring Guatemala. And Hurricane Beryl kills at least 1 as heavy rain and high wind speeds devastate the Caribbean. The storm intensified to a Category 5 after making landfall in Grenada, forcing the island nation to declare an emergency. We begin in the United States. The Supreme Court has for the first time recognized that presidents, including Donald Trump, have immunity from prosecution for certain actions while holding office. The top court's conservative majority, which Donald Trump helped create, ruled 6-3 to protect presidents for their official actions. The ruling marks the first time in history where the Supreme Court declared that former presidents would be shielded from criminal charges. However, the court added that presidents could face charges for unofficial or personal misconduct. Now, Donald Trump is accused of overseeing an effort to subvert his 2020 election loss to Joe Biden, which includes claims of election fraud, obstructing the certification of election results, and conspiring to defraud the government. The latest Supreme Court decision boosts the ex-president's defense against federal charges and could also affect the state-level election interference charges brought in Georgia. The Supreme Court justices have determined that Donald Trump's interactions with then Vice President Mike Pence will remain immune since the president discussing responsibilities with the vice president are considered official conduct. On the matter of Donald Trump's remarks on January 6, 2021, conservative justices said that those 2 were protected since presidential addresses were an integral part of the office. Now, the most damaging part of the ruling is the prohibition of using any conduct determined official as evidence in court. This historic decision by the highest court in the land has given the already convicted felon a major political and legal lifeline as he was staring down still multiple federal and state criminal proceedings. Meanwhile, several Democrats, including President Joe Biden, decried the Supreme Court ruling.
No one is above the law. Not even the President of the United States. With today's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that fundamentally changed. For all practical purposes, today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do. This is a fundamentally new principle, and it's a dangerous precedent, because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States. The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump called the Supreme Court ruling a big win for America's democracy. The Supreme Court ruling means that the federal election subversion case goes back to a lower court, which will likely push the proceedings past the presidential election in November. And now moving to Europe, racism and racial discrimination in the United Kingdom remain pressing issues. Most recently, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak became the target of discrimination when a supporter of Nigel Farage's right-wing Reform UK party referred to him as a pocky. The incident was exposed by a news channel which aired a recording of a campaigner using the racial slur, which was even seen by the British Prime Minister's daughters. Now, the word pocky, often used as an insulting and contentious term for an immigrant from South Asia, mostly Pakistan. After the incident, Prime Minister Sunak expressed strong anger, stating that he was deeply hurt. He attributed the use of racist language and opinions to the culture within the Reform UK party.
When my two daughters have to see and hear Reform people who campaign for Nigel Farage calling me an effing packy, it hurts and it makes me angry, and I think he has some questions to answer. Well, when you see Reform candidates and campaigners seemingly using racist and misogynistic language and opinions, seemingly without challenge, I think it tells you something about the culture within the Reform Party.
Later, Reform UK party chief Nigel Farage condemned the remarks as appalling and distanced himself from the campaigners' comments. Farage also added that a few individuals did not reflect the views of his party or its supporters.
I apologise for being set up by somebody who said vile things. One of the problems, of course, is that I single-handedly destroyed the BNP. So you're going to find some people who don't have a home to go to, who come to us, and do you know something? When we find out who they are, we simply get rid of them.
Now, following allegations of offensive and racist comments, Reform UK has dropped 3 parliamentary candidates from the party. However, since the registration deadline for candidates has passed, all 3 will in fact remain on the ballot despite no longer being endorsed by the party. The controversial hard-right candidate Nigel Farage, who is on his 8th attempt to win a seat in Parliament, has himself sparked numerous controversies because of bigoted speech during his campaign. Now, according to the anti-racism organization Hope Not Hate, Reform UK has been forced to withdraw at least 166 candidates since the beginning of the year due to racist or offensive comments. Now, Rishi Sunak is the first person of color to be the British Prime Minister and has constantly faced derogatory remarks for being of Indian origin. With the election coming up on the 4th of July, it remains to be seen if racially attacking the Prime Minister will benefit or damage the far-right Reform UK party. And staying in Europe, Ukraine is now tapping into its prisoner population to bolster its infantry forces in the ongoing war with Russia. Inmates are being offered the opportunity for freedom in exchange for joining the fight, filling the gaps left by casualties and weary soldiers on the front line. Kyiv says that several thousand recruits from a prison population of approximately 27,000 will be eligible for recruitment.
People who want to do it. For them, I think it's a good idea. Not everyone here is such a criminal as people on the loose think. They are the same guys here who just stumbled and have a great desire to defend their country. Why not give them that opportunity?
Ukraine's Deputy Justice Minister says that more than 3,000 prisoners have already been released on parole and have been placed within military units. Now, before selection, volunteers undergo a physical and mental health test and then either serve in special units for as long as the war continues or until they're demobilized.
Here is this open door for the military, for the commanders who said what will happen to the convicts after the decision on parole, if they sign a contract with this or that unit. This led to the fact that we have more than 5,000 such submitted applications.
Now, it's important to note Ukraine's decision to use prisoners to fight the war differs from Russia's approach. Kyiv has set stricter eligibility conditions to distance itself from Moscow's reckless recruitment practices. Offenders of serious crimes such as serial murder, drug trafficking, sexual violence, corruption, and national security crimes will not be sent to the front lines. Furthermore, if a deployed individual commits another crime while serving, the rest of their previous sentence will be added on top of 10 years of imprisonment.
Our mobilization resources and those of Russia differ greatly. That is why we are training so that one of ours can repel at least 50 of theirs. That would be the case.
After being screened, the released prisoner undergoes training where they are taught how to handle firearms and learn crucial combat tactics.
Ми чекали на них, ми готувались до цього.
We were waiting for them. We prepared for this because we have to pass this experience on to them. We see great potential in them because in these days, 2 weeks, we see what kind of aspirations they have, how they try to fulfill these tasks, how they study. It is well worth it. Because they have motivation, they have an inner desire, and they are volunteers just like us.
The ongoing recruitment challenges have caused significant division in Ukraine. Analysts point out that while new recruits are being added, it could take several months before their impact is actually felt on the battlefield. Meanwhile, Russia has also faced substantial losses. However, due to its larger population, Russia has been able to increase the size of its military through conscription and by offering recruits relatively attractive contracts. And moving to the Middle East, Israel's national airline says Turkey refused to refuel one of its planes which landed in the country. The flight was traveling from Poland to Israel when it made an emergency landing after a passenger on board fell ill. Israeli officials say the plane was forced to fly to Greece, where it refueled before flying to Israel. Meanwhile, Turkish authorities say the Israeli flight crew voluntarily decided to depart without refueling. Our next report gets you more details.
The 9-month-long war against Hamas in Gaza has soured Israel's relations with several nations in the region. And one of these countries is Israel's neighbor across the sea, Turkey. Israel's national airline El Al says the Turkish airport workers refused to refuel one of its planes after it made an emergency landing in the country on Sunday. The flight from Poland's capital Warsaw to Tel Aviv landed in the Turkish city of Antalya after a passenger on board fell ill. A doctor who treated the passenger on the plane said the patient needed to be evacuated for urgent medical treatment. Israeli media reported that the flight crew initially received permission to deboard and refuel in Antalya. However, Turkish officials delayed the decision, saying they needed permits to refuel the plane. And after waiting for 3 hours, the flight crew was informed they would not be allowed to deboard or refuel. The plane ultimately took off for Greece, where it refueled at the Rhodes airport before flying to Israel. The status of the sick passenger remains unclear, and airline officials didn't inform if the person received medical treatment in Turkey. Meanwhile, reports quoting Turkish diplomatic sources say permission for emergency landing and refueling was granted to the El Al flight, but the captain voluntarily decided to depart without refueling. The Turkish authorities have also refuted claims of them denying the plane the chance to refuel. The latest clash between Israel and Turkey took place in Antalya, which was one of the most popular vacation destinations for Israelis last year. However, since Hamas attacked Israel on the 7th of October last year and Israel's subsequent military retaliation in Gaza, all direct flights between Turkey and Israel have been cancelled. This May, Turkey completely stopped trade with Israel over the Gaza war and also sought to join South Africa in its genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan remains one of Israel's biggest critics of the war, calling it a terrorist state on multiple occasions. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he refuses to be lectured by a brutal dictator who supports terror groups in Gaza while bombing Kurdish villages in his own native country, Turkey.
And finally, a rural New Zealand town ordered the brutal killing of nearly 400 cats as part of an annual fundraising competition. The gruesome contest, held in North Canterbury, offered cash prizes of up to $600 for the highest number of cats killed and the largest cat caught. The event organizers justified the contest as a means to control stray cat population, all the while ignoring criticism and widespread outcry. Our final report takes you inside.
A cat is often associated with cuteness for many. Glowing eyes, round body, and a soft fur. Stroking a cat's fur is an incredibly pleasant experience. As they become friendly with humans, their cuteness and affection grows with every interaction. When they roll on their backs for attention and knead their paws on clothing, it can warm a person's heart anywhere in this world, except in rural New Zealand. In a shocking and heart-wrenching event, participants in the annual North Canterbury fundraiser killed almost 400 cats for cash prizes. A $300 prize is awarded to the hunter who kills the most cats, and a $600 prize for who catches the biggest cat. Reports say it's the event's largest haul to date, with the number up by 100 from last year. This competition targets not only cats but also deer, pigs, ducks, possums and rabbits. This year, around 1,500 people took part, including approximately 440 children under the age of 14. Witnesses saw children dragging dead cats across the field. Children who should be playing outside are now engaged in such disturbing activities. The fundraiser raised about $60,000 this year for a community pool and a school. And the deer meat will be processed, frozen and given to food banks. The saddest day for cats in that area was in 2023, when stray cats were included in the fundraiser's hunting categories, provoking strong opposition from animal rights activists. But nothing could stop the slaughter of these feline friends. The committee claims the category helps control feral cats, which they say threaten native wildlife and spread diseases that endanger farm animals. The organizers say they try to avoid killing pet cats as they pretend to care. Stray cats must be trapped and identified first and killed with a .22 rifle. Traps must be set at least 10 kilometers away from residential areas. The organizers claim the stray cats once caged act like demons on drugs, trying to attack their captors. And why wouldn't they? They are terrified, a natural reaction for any living being. But is killing them the only solution? It's ironic in a country like New Zealand, which is one of the world's highest rates of cat ownership per capita, with half of them being household pets. But the hatred does not end here. Conservation groups regularly call for feral cats to be included in an ambitious pest eradication plan, aiming to eliminate possums, rats, stoats and ferrets by 2050. But can violence against animals be called conservation? Voiceless animals who can't express their pain or fear in human language are being killed without a chance. Nature is interdependent. As much as they need us, we need them too. Today it is cats. Who knows who it will be tomorrow?
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden. How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.